welcome to the Scuttlebutt podcast in the Associated Foundations Training Center in memory of Barry Herlihy. My name is Jonathan Williams. I'm President and CEO, and compared to last episode, I got my voice back. I'm no longer nasally, and I successfully passed this cold over to none other than our CFO, Ross O'Brien.
All right.
Yay.
So maybe in one of these
Sharing
future
is
episodes,
caring.
we'll ask him what the cold did to him. But thankfully, I'm out of it. So we're smack dab as we record this episode. We're actually sitting aboard the ship on a Saturday in the middle of Fleet Week planning and last lead up, but we wanted to make sure we didn't leave any of you hanging in our episodes. And we're joined by none other than some amazing group of people. The same group of people. We now have Captain Roundup.
And nuts and bolts, all right.
You're nuts and bolts, unless you come up with something new. We got Token over here. Are you Token?
No,
What did we decide with you?
I don't like Token.
Battleship
You got to
tech
come up
guy?
with
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah, we can do better than that.
We can do better
We
than
can do better
Token.
than that.
And what did we decide? You're the
Keel haul.
keel hauler, the wood ship lady,
Sure.
the tall ship lady, the schooner, the sails.
Is that
whatever.
a tall ship lady or a tall
Is that
ship
a tall
lady?
ship? That's a tall ship lady.
This podcast is going to be another interesting one, isn't it?
It probably will be. You know what we could call her is the masthead.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Always pointing out ahead.
That's the bowsprit.
Is that what that is?
Very good.
All right. Well, anyways,
Dolphin striker.
Unlike a figurehead, which is the guy doing the intro, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Ooh. And the one to keep us on point is none other than the producer, Marann. Actually, no, it's Kyle that keeps us on point. But anyways, let's get this thing going. So, today we decided to delve into our producer here, Marann Fengler. She's got an interesting story. I think as we talk through these podcasts, we're really trying to highlight some inspirational stories and what the ship is about, and kind of highlight who we are. And I, over the years, I think it's been assumed that our crew is a bunch of, senior veterans, prominently, Caucasian. I hate to say that, but I think that's assumed across the country. And I do want to state that we're actually about 50-50 women and men on the paid crew, and there's a good chunk of women on the volunteer crew. And we really are embrace that LA diversity, that California side of things. On many different levels, but I think it highlights what America's about. And so I think we're going to go in and talk to Marann. She came aboard. How long you been here?
about 2.5 years.
2.5 years. And
Yeah.
what did you just apply to the job that we put in the newspaper?
No.
Did we even use a
The
newspaper?
newspaper.
No,
Wow.
No.
No.
So we're not that old school. We don't still use the
Jolene
newspaper
said
around
she
here.
knew somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, Jolene knew somebody.
Yeah.
That's scary.
What's a
know somebody.
newspaper?
What's a newspaper?
What's a newspaper? Yeah, of course, Kyle.
Yeah. I know
Or
somebody.
Mr. Roundup.
You wrap around your roundup.
A comment from you on what a newspaper is,
Yeah,
yet
okay.
you know what Roundup is, which Roundup is like, isn't it illegal? Where do you get Roundup? Are you driving to Arizona for Roundup these days?
I know people.
You know people. You're smuggling Roundup
Yeah.
in the trunk?
He knows a guy.
Wow.
knows a guy.
Is there extra
There's
money?
a decoy car. It's a whole thing, but I get it.
I mean, we are in California. Is it like Smokey and the Bandit? Do you just floor it with the Roundup, and then you got somebody out ahead of you, and we got a bogey?
Yeah, one guy usually just distracts up front, and the cops roll up, and then I'll run out the back.
And the good country music plays in the
I was
background
gonna
while
say,
you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. One Bruce Springsteen in one car, Good Country in the other.
There
Yeah.
you go.
NASCAR started with moonshine. What are you guys going to start a new racing circuit on the Roundup smuggling?
Well, it's in my blood. I am related to the Italian mafia. I have a great uncle that used to be a moonshine runner. That's where I learned my tactics.
There you go.
Wow.
It works.
And so now you're just applying it to Roundup.
Yeah. Well,
Gotta do what you gotta
Hopefully,
do.
hopefully,
Don't drink that.
Hopefully, nobody's listening to you around here about smuggling Roundup. Anyways, back over. So back off of. So not a newspaper. You were referred in here by
Jolene
was
Drake,
our,
who was our-
head of development at the time before
Yeah.
we hired Mr. Roundup over here.
Yeah.
And so tell us, what did you think when she referred you?
So I remember when she got the job here, she had been here, I guess, about a month and a half, and she called me and she was like, "You have to come check out my new office." So I came down here and we kind of sat up there. She was in the Admiral's cabin at the time, and we sort of sat up there and plotted, ooh, if something opens up, it'd be cool to work together again. So when it did, she was like, "I'm not really sure this is up your alley, but something opened up. You want to come check it out?" And so I did, and talked to Mike for
That one.
That one.
Yeah,
Nuts and
I'm the
bolts.
one.
Nuts and bolts, yeah.
That one that she pointed to on radio.
On radio,
That
exactly,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little camera sitting up there, so anyway. Yeah, and so I came down and interviewed with him, and I partially knew right away that I wanted to do it, and I was partially very hesitant because I'd had a lot of experience in nonprofits that at that point was a little bit, shall we say, disappointing. So I was a little hesitant, and it took a while for me to kind of be like, yeah, I want to do this.
All right, so we won't dig into too much of your hesitant experience
that's
because I'm
okay.
sure we don't want to put that on
No.
podcast. But what is your? I mean, look, it's a steel ship. I mean, I can't imagine it was. What's your background prior to steel ship stuff?
Prior to steel ships, started as a figure skater and then worked in traditional sailing vessels or
Now, were you
tall ships.
born a figure skater?
No.
Well, that's what you said you started as.
I started as, just a glimmer in my parents' eyes.
Okay, all right.
With a
See,
pair of ice
now
skates.
finally we get back to the beginning
Resetting the
of where this
timeline.
all started. Okay, so you became a figure skater at some point in time in your life.
Yeah. I was about 7.5 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 7.5 or 8 as a figure skater. And I mean, figure skater can mean many different things. I mean, did you just go to the skating rink on Saturday and kind of skate around on figure
No.
skating, ice skating?
No,
I think
no.
that's
Kind of
pretty
like what I did.
descriptive.
Kind of like what I did with the roller skating. You don't know about roller skating. Oh.
I know what roller skating
Did you
is.
do that on Fridays like when I went?
All
I mean,
us-
I didn't assign a day to it, but I have roller skates.
I would say the four of us on this side probably remember hanging out at the mall and hanging out at the roller skating rink.
I do not. I hung out in ice rinks.
Okay, so
Yeah,
That's all I
the roller
did.
rink.
I did the
Did you?
roller rink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody,
to Debbie
reverse
Gibson.
direction.
And as we get to Top Gun
Oh,
2,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everybody
remember-
skate backwards.
Skate
Backwards.
backwards. Couples skate.
that was that's where like my first hands were held and everything.
Oh, yeah.
That's where everything started.
That's how you
Anyway,
got away with
That
it.
was
The couples skate, you had to hold hands.
and you ate pizza for dinner, that horrible
That
flat
cardboard
pizza.
flat
Remember that pizza? Yeah.
Dripping with oil.
See,
Did
figure
you ever
skater.
have that experience, Kyle?
We're too snobby to go to roller rinks.
We didn't have a roller rink nearby, so I got my cardboard pizza at like the bowling alley or something.
Yeah. They had cardboard
bowler.
pizza at ice rinks too.
Yeah.
So to the ice rink. So you went there on Saturdays?
No, I went there. Sundays was the only day that I wasn't there. Sundays were the only day I wasn't there.
Okay, so you actually figure skate.
Oh yeah, I trained for like 13 years.
For what reason?
I wanted to go to the Olympics.
Did you go to the Olympics?
Nope.
So-
I competed at that level, but I didn't compete well enough to make it to the Olympics.
So you competed. So have you won medals, any kind
Yeah.
of like awards?
Yeah.
Okay, so what have you won?
Lots of local competitions and some regional stuff or whatever. And I'm what's known in the skating world as a double gold medalist. So there are a whole bunch of levels that you have to get through and to compete at different skill sets or different skill levels. And so that's basically the top level
So
in
you're
the
saying
sport.
we have 2 award winners in this room?
Yes, we do.
Wow.
Wow.
And her head fits
Don't
through the
pull-
door.
don't
but-
pull-
Her head
Interesting.
remains.
I was going to say, don't pull that straight.
Imbalance.
She has
This is all about
double
Marann.
gold medal. Wow.
So you got a double gold medal. So is that like a license to drive?
In a way, you can't really compete at the level so the people that you see in the Olympics and on television and the nationals and stuff, that's senior level competitors. And you can't compete at that level unless you have all your tests. So I'm a gold medalist in free skating and in figures.
Wow. So why did you do that?
Because I was dumb.
I mean, did it was it? I mean, did it really interest you?
Yeah.
Was it an escape to from something? Was it?
Oh man, that's a hard one. I think my mom took me to like the ice capades when I was probably 7 before I started, and I just thought it looked really cool. And once I got out there and started doing it, there's like, to this day, I still love it because there's no motion quite like it. And the actual skating itself is great. Competition, that's a whole other podcast. But yeah, I just love the jumping. I love the gliding. I love all of that.
Well, yeah, that we can go on to Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan in the next podcast. But
Those are different skill sets.
so
And the motion's
Where else?
different.
Yeah.
So did you find that, look, 1:30 tour. You can see
1:30
what
gun
time
tour.
we're recording. 1:30 p.m. on a Saturday for the gun tour we're recording. And that's a real world environment we work in. We don't do this at live, so we should do live someday.
We should do it. So yeah,
that'd be kind of fun. So I think and some of these guys can throw in questions. I'm just the guy peppering the questions at this point. But did you find that figure skating, it inspired you as a kid? You saw Ice Capades, it inspired you, it became something else. Was it really a part of your life, and it became something that fulfilled your life?
In some ways, yeah. And in other ways, it was just what I did. It was like having a full-time job when I was a kid, because it was like you were on the ice at 5:30 for 2 hours, and then at school all day, and then back for another 2 hours, maybe a ballet class, home, do homework, go to bed, get up to do the same thing the next day.
Did it become a family to you?
Skaters are a little bit too catty to be family most of the time.
Okay.
Wow.
There were some that were cool, but yeah, it definitely is. I mean, all the things you hear about it is.
So I have a question. So when you get into competition, and it's one thing to do something you love and, go learn how to skate, learn how to figure skate. Did the competition take away from the joy of skating?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, most skaters will tell you that moment when your name is called and you leave the boards and you go out to your starting position, you're going, why God, why am I doing this? Because it's terrifying. There's like hundreds of people watching just you. But then once your music starts, you're so focused on what you're doing that everything else goes away.
So do you think, in a competition when they're judging you, that can actually cause problems where you feel like you're getting judged more often in other areas? Do you think that's possible?
Mm-hmm. And it's because it's not just the judges. It's coaches, it's parents, it's a whole that is very ingrained in the sport. It's very critical and very subjective. So there are things that they're looking for that aren't just the skills you're performing, but what you're wearing, how you look, how much. You've talked about your weight loss journey and all that. Weight's been a problem in my life since I was probably 13. And I never weighed I don't think I've ever weighed more than like 135, 137 in my life.
Well, but it was because your coaches and everybody else made the weight a problem, not because you made the weight a problem.
Yeah,
that was the image they wanted, and that's the image they drove.
That's like the old flight attendants on airplanes, and you had to be this size and everything else, otherwise you didn't have a job anymore. So that drove your desire, your mental being, your DNA, how you function on that. So,
and I was a big jumper, so I was muscular. Like I had rock hard quads because I could do my double axel was probably a foot off the ice, and muscle weighs more. So, you'd have the weekly weigh-ins and you'd get in trouble for not losing weight and all of that, but it was never, it was all muscle. I didn't really have anything much to lose.
Muscle burns more too. So for those of you that may be really bulky and muscular on the radio right now, come down and eat a Vicky's hot dog. You can burn a Vicky's hot dog if you have a lot of muscles.
I just walk around the ship a bunch of times. It's fun.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good.
So
I was going to say, what about the transition away from that? At some point you left. You did some shows, I think, as I recall, Vegas or whatever. But then you transitioned into boats, and that's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, well, I did the typical thing that a lot of elite athletes do is when you leave the sport that you've been training in for, since you were a tiny thing and it's been your whole life, you leave and you have no idea what you want to do next. And that's the thing that a lot of athletes go through. And I think it took me a good 4 years to walk away from that. I mean, I was in a major depression. I hardly left the house for a year and had just a couple of friends and really didn't do much. And I think, what was it, about 04 or so, there was a whole bunch of sailing movies that came out around the same time. The first Pirates of the Caribbean movie came out, and A&E had that Horatio Hornblower.
Master and Commander came out? When
that was when Master and Commander came out too. And when I saw that one, I finally was kind of like, that sparked something for me. And I was like, that looks really, really cool. And they shot that on a real ship. There's got to be a way I can do that. And it was sort of the first thing that really motivated me again, got my curiosity up and got me moving. And I ended up starting to sail square riggers, and that turned into a whole career that I never expected.
From steel to steam. Or steel to... Or
one type of water to another.
Ice to sail, sorry. Ice to sail.
You shared, I think the first day you went there, you were scared to death.
Oh, I was, yeah.
It was a local community sailing organization, and you walked in there and really didn't know anything.
No, I knew absolutely nothing about it. And I was still in that place of depression and really feeling crappy about myself. And so I essentially sat in the orientation and just hid in the middle of the room, trying not to be seen. And I think the first 2 or 3 months that I was sailing, I was paranoid about doing anything wrong. And so I'd always like, are you sure I'm doing this okay? I'm not going to drop a sail on somebody. And so it was.
So did you apply for a job or you volunteered?
I volunteered at first. And I just started. It's a really great community for networking's not quite the right word, but basically you start getting to know people and establishing a reputation for yourself. And they'll be like, hey, I need crew for this. Come with me. And
it's called relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the key to everything is kind of, that's why people go to Harvard or Princeton or any of those. It's kind of the relationships you gain from it. And I think you gain some of those in that industry as well.
You sailed both coasts too.
This coast and a bit in the Chesapeake, yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's interesting that you notate you started out as a volunteer. So you actually took that first step, that big first step to leave your house and realize you had to do something.
Yeah.
And it looked like something you wanted to do, so you offered to volunteer. Your first step was not, let me see if I can get paid to do something I want to do. It was, let me volunteer and get out of the house.
Yeah, because I didn't know if I'd be able to handle it or,
well,
what I would be doing.
You? I mean, would they have hired you with no experience?
At the time,
probably not.
Yeah, actually, they would, because the way it works with that is like you've got a captain and a mate that are licensed and have a lot of experience, and then you have generally some deckhands who have a little bit of experience and are gaining more, but they also take green deckhands so that they can pass things on and keep people learning. So if I had really wanted to do it as a paid position, I could have. It doesn't pay very well at all, but it's not the job you're doing to get paid. You're doing it for the experience and because you love it.
And the only reason I asked that question is for our listeners, I've done a lot of reading over the years, and I don't think, a lot of folks don't realize, what is it? I think Thomas Edison that started out as a volunteer, or one of his guys started out. No, it's somebody that became prominent. I forgot who it was, volunteered to help Thomas Edison for a year or two unpaid. And that's how he got in and finally started building his reputation, his experience. The guy that wrote Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, did it for 10 years where he actually didn't get paid to gain knowledge from all of those folks. I mean, not to compare myself to these people, but I spent 11 years as a volunteer before I ever got paid.
Yep. It is a great way to, you talk about getting out of the house or out of a slump, or just to do a change. I was a volunteer here before I came on the paid staff. I think a lot of us had that path where we volunteered and then moved.
Yeah.
If you except for Kyle, I don't think he volunteered here.
No, he didn't volunteer.
And that's no diss on you, certainly, but the rest of us did volunteer.
Well, and I think for me, it was one of the things that was very beneficial about it was that I learned it from the bottom up. You start from nothing, and you learn so many nuances that you wouldn't otherwise, and you really develop like the vocabulary, not just the verbal vocabulary, but the physical vocabulary and the knowledge bank.
And one of the things about volunteering that I like, and it's one of the questions, it's what caused me to ask the question about competition and skating. When you are volunteering, it is often because you're doing something you love.
Yeah.
And doing something you love is wonderful. And if you find yourself in a place where you can get paid for doing that, more is better. But that shouldn't be your goal. Your goal should be to do something that you're passionate about, and volunteering is a great way to do that.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
I also, on adding on to that, and something that I try to, my wife and I try to instill in our kids, is the fact that that's selfless service. Mm-hmm. And you never know where that's going to lead. You can build relationships. You give back more than you receive, and that could lead to somewhere. And in a lot of ways, you can end up having mentors and people that are really experts and professionals in other areas that are willing to take you on and help mentor you and coach you and bring you forward.
Yeah.
When you just look at nothing but the pay, you may actually be hindering yourself for years back versus really kind of stepping up and volunteering and learning the trade and learning what you're good at and building those skills.
Yeah, you never know what's going to translate from one thing to another, and it's been fascinating how both of those aspects come into play here, because skating gives you an just insane ability to have attention for detail, because especially back, because when I came up, figures were still in. They dropped them. Oh gosh, I think it was a novice when they did that. And so I was stubborn and I was like, no, I want all my tests. And I, stuck around and did it, but it took me years longer than I normally would have, because the ice time for that aspect of the sport went way down. But I stuck with it. And doing figures is nothing but detail. There's so much, it's hard to even explain. So if a figure blade, a skate blade has two edges, and a hollow in the middle of it. So you're either on an outside edge or an inside edge, or the flat, which is both edges touching at the same time. When you do figures, all of that shows up on the ice. And there are literally, the judges will come and look down at the print your blade leaves on the ice and find those details, and they will mark you down if you're not on the edge you're supposed to be on when you're supposed to be on it. So there's like, you're in your head, you're like, it's, I was thinking like, I walk down Broadway and I'm still counting, because that's how you have to get the speed right and time it. And so you're like going around the circle, you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, turn on the 8, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, turn on the 8.
I think that's the way we need to start managing here.
Turning on the 8.
Turning on the 8. That's what I was going to say.
Turn on 8. Yeah.
But so I'm still, it still goes through my head like that. If I'm moving, I'll just fall into counting without even thinking about it. But it's all those little nuances that I learned there that, I pick up details that a lot of people don't. And then the same thing, like with sailing, there were so many times we would be doing festival work, and we would be up at 6 a.m, 3 sails, 3 3-hour sails a day, not finishing till midnight, putting that boat away perfectly every single night, despite the fact that we were going to be sailing it the next day. And then I got a really sick work ethic out of that, because with skating, you could work and work and work and work and never actually hit your goal, because it's out of your hands at the end of the day. When you're competing, you can go out there and skate perfectly and still not win. The judges like somebody else better that day, and they win. So it set up this weird thing in my head about I could work really hard and not get anywhere. And sailing reversed that. Huh. So it's all these interesting things that have all kind of come together and are really playing out well here.
Well, this place is crazy. So what did you, after you left sailing, you came here. Mm-hmm. And what's it been like over 2.5 years of getting absorbed into the culture of this odd, off-the-wall place?
It's going to sound like very patronizing or whatever, but I completely love it.
That's scary.
It does speak something about you anyway.
Yeah, it does. It does.
A glutton for punishment.
But your boat experience comes out here.
Oh, so much. From day one.
It's amazing. And
from
you don't
day
really
one.
think about that, because a lot of the job can just be the regular, whether it's events or you're in the office doing things. But so much of what we do here really is maritime. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell everybody, she's a hell of a line handler, better than I am. And I'm a 1,000-day, sea time guy.
Yeah, you were in an engine room.
Yeah, that's true. We had ropes there too. Actually, I worked more deck than you would think. And
I
Dave,
did.
you'd like her on a boat.
Oh yeah.
Trust me, I would take her to sea. And one of the compliments that a couple of my mentors had given me a long time ago was, I would sail anywhere with you.
That's a big, in the maritime, that's a big compliment.
It is.
Yeah.
And that is
very romantic.
What we got, what we got, the equivalent where I came from was, I'll go up the river with you, right? Mm-hmm. And that's on a little green gunboat.
There's a lot of meaning in it's a simple statement, but there's a lot of meaning in it.
You know what? That's one of the best compliments I ever got was in a letter of recommendation from one of the officers I worked with, and it contained the phrase, a consummate riverine warrior.
Nice.
And an outstanding professional. And you just look at that and you're like, okay, well, I've hit the apex. Time to move on.
I'm good.
Right? Yeah.
Those are such good words.
I like them.
I wish I could polish words like that.
So it was, no, but we were talking about service and what that means when you start volunteering, whether you're a member of a wooden ship crew, whether you're a member of the crew that we have here. That whole lifetime of service, that whole embodiment of service, I think, is the foundation for making good leaders. We talk about volunteering or the failure to volunteer and only looking at the paycheck as being hindering. I'm a firm believer that you cannot lead until you've learned to serve.
Absolutely.
I like the volunteer aspect. I also think in terms of meaning, because I've only ever done, most of my life has had some meaning, whether it's the 23 years of nonprofit work, research vessels, the Aquarium of the Pacific, and now, 10 and a half, almost 11 years here. And then I did green energy for 6 years. I wanted to find things that actually meant something in our lives. Yeah. And that's what I worked on too. And I think a lot of the volunteerism that we see here is the same thing. I care about what we're doing here for all the right reasons, whether it's history, the veterans that are here, or frankly, the community that is here, which is really a mixture of veteran and non-veteran. All of that's truly important to me.
So if you want to sign up as a volunteer, go to pacificbattleship.com, click the volunteer link. It's under one of those
Get involved.
drop down menus. Get involved. Yeah, it's under Get Involved. So come down and become part of that family. So in closing remarks, you've kind of had a journey. Where would you say you've been up and down through the years, had challenges? Where are you at today?
Healing. Yeah.
Learning still every day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I want to pick up on one point that David made is service. The transition out of skating into other things was a lot about that, because when I first started sailing, skating really teaches you to be very self-centered, and it's not necessarily malintentioned, but it's just you have to be very focused on you. And when you get on a boat, we have a saying in tall ships that I love: shipmate, self. You take care of the ship will take care of you. You take care of your shipmates, you can all take care of the ship, and then you get taken care of. And it's not about putting yourself last in terms of not taking care of yourself, but it's in terms of serving others. And that was a huge lesson I needed to learn. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Cool. So any last comments?
Don't compete in ice skating.
There you go. I got that as a big takeaway.
Well,
but go do it. It's a great sport. It's a fantastic sport. Just stay away from the competitive aspect.
So for those of you that are on the podcast and listening and not watching the video that we put in, and we'll wave at the GoPro because we do ignore our video audience sometimes. We try to forget you're there because we become different. We start acting.
You do?
Yeah. Yeah. Start saying lines like, Top Gun 2 or any of those kinds of things.
Your ego's writing checks your body can't cash.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that seems vaguely appropriate. I'm not sure.
I figured it fit the theme.
There you go.
So
I got dared to.
No, I wasn't going to say you got dared. I just wanted everybody on the listening audience to know that you wear ice skates everywhere you go.
Yeah, I do.
And you're still trying to get yourself separated from your ice skates. How many years later at this
Really
point?
hard to
We're not even
drive.
talking about that.
So maybe mentally and everything else you've separated from ice skating, but you still wear them every day to work.
Yeah.
And walking around a battleship on ice skates can make it challenging, I'm sure.
Well, the Navy term skating just means screwing around. So I just figured that was a indicator.
So last funny story before we go with this one. I was doing a show in Vegas. We were at Caesar's Palace. And one of my friends, our rehearsals started at like 10 o'clock at night. And one of my friends wanted to get coffee. So we're in our skates because we were on a break. So we put guards on. We have these plastic guards so you can walk around and not ruin the blades. So we walked literally in the front entrance through the entire lobby of Caesar's Palace and all the way into a coffee, some sort of restaurant, whatever. Got coffee all the way back out. How many people do you think noticed we were wearing skates?
Not a single one.
Not a single one.
Because
totally
you know why?
Vegas.
Yeah.
You know why?
Why?
They were hungover.
Well, it depends what time it was.
Yeah.
No,
No,
not
could be
in
anytime,
Las
right?
Vegas.
Probably wasted in gambling.
Yeah,
They were hungover from the movie Hangover that occurred on the roof of Caesar's Palace.
There you go.
That's right.
Because they were busy looking for the tiger at Mike Tyson's house.
Oh, that was funny. I remember that.
I love that movie.
It's also where our Vicky chef lives, and so it's very convenient that
What, on
we
the
have
roof?
tie-in
On the
there.
roof of Caesar's?
Wow.
All right, let's wrap this one up.
Yeah.
Quickly.
I'd say we need to wrap this up very quickly because this is going downhill. If you have recommendations, podcast at labattleship.com. Podcast at labattleship.com. Please do not neglect sending those to us. We need your
we want 'em.
recommendations because otherwise this podcast is going to go downhill and you're going to have to listen to us pontificate about ourselves. And we really are looking for good content that you want to hear.
Are you saying I'm not good content?
I thought
it
this
was good
content
content.
was good.
It's
I mean,
pretty
you got to
good.
get to know the people.
Oh no. I'm waiting for the opening to talk about myself for the next 3 or 4 episodes.
That's been,
So I'm
that's
okay
been
with
the first
that.
5 episodes.
I
But
was
I need to
gonna
make
say-
sure I have cover.
I figured that we were going to do that every other episode.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
I gotta have
I'm on
cover.
vacation.
So I'm inviting people to send an email to podcast at labattleship.com with your comments and thoughts of what you'd like to do. And if you don't send them,
Actually,
I will pontificate about myself in every episode until somebody does send one.
what he really wants is he wants people to send Jonathan, please tell us about yourself.
That's what I
Jonathan,
really
can we hear
want.
your story? We need your story.
My story will be out in a local magazine next week.
I heard something about that. Yay.
So everybody can see I am now under 200 pounds for everybody's information.
Woohoo.
Oh,
I'm like
nice.
197. I'm not quite Mr. Roundup yet. What are you, 180? 185?
nah, I'm pushing. I'm low 190s.
Are you going 190s?
All you tall people have so many more places
What are you,
to put the
6'2"?
pounds.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
impressive.
It is.
Sitting down, the people on camera can't see. That's all I am.
So I need to get down to 190 and put on 2 inches.
We could put you on the rack and stretch. And see how
I guess I need to start working on that.
Those little high shoes, those really thick.
Yeah, maybe I should do high shoes.
I'm 5'10" in my skates.
Are you 5'10" in your skates?
am.
Maybe you should wear skates.
Yeah.
Maybe
There
I
you
should
go.
wear skates.
That would work.
Or
Maybe
platforms.
skate.
The
Anyways,
pounds are
let's
just so
let's close this out. Over the next week, I will look for ways to get platforms so I can become 6'2" and see if I can drop another 8 pounds so I can be Kyle.
I'm gonna wear the platforms for dodgeball. That'd be epic.
Our
Yeah,
next-
maybe we'll wear them for dodgeball. If you, this episode will come up after
After Fleet Week,
dodgeball.
yeah.
So sorry if you made it to dodgeball and watched our horrible performance. If not, plans for next
And
year.
speaking in the future past tense, then
Isn't that great? That's called
Faith in your
motivation.
team.
That
Fine.
is motivation. When you say a horrible performance, they get mad at you and get fired up and they go out and fight harder.
We all have different coaching
It's called,
styles.
yeah,
I was gonna
it's called
say.
negative reinforcement.
Yeah,
True
so-
It works
underdog
every
story.
time.
Yeah, you hear
a
that,
true
kids?
underdog
It's a
story.
true underdog. Everybody roots for the underdog.
Yeah.
So if you go in as the underdog, they will root for you, and then you win. This
We
is the
have
way it
spirit.
works.
Yes, we do.
I will
Wow.
be wearing that outfit. Anyways, move on. Let's
wanna
close
see
this
that.
out. We'll figure out what the next episode is, and look forward to welcoming you all back onto listening to our podcast.
Cool. Until next
Thank you.
time.